So, everyone has heard of King Arthur, but where did the legends come from and are any of them true? King Arthur, as we know him today, is actually a composite figure between a Welsh mythological hero and a real historical figure. Let's look at how this composition happened. Here's a list of characteristics about King Arthur as we know him today. He was named Arthur, of course. He has Kay, a battle companion. He fought giants. He has a wife named Guinevere. He fought in the Battle of Camlan. He never died. He lived in the 5th century. He was an heir to royalty. He was an orphan. He fought Saxons and he opposed King Vortigern. There are a lot more characteristics, of course, but I'm just sticking to these because they appear in Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain. This book gave us the first recognizable story arc of King Arthur. So as I said, King Arthur is a composite figure between a Welsh mythological hero and a real historical figure, and then Geoffrey of Monmouth combined these two figures into King Arthur. Let's look at some of the characteristics of this Welsh mythological hero. He was named Arthur. He had Kay, a battle companion. He fought giants. He had a wife named Guinevere. He fought in the Battle of Camlan, and he never died. However, Arthur Pendragon supposedly existed in the 5th century, but there is no known historical figure named Arthur in the 5th century. So where did he come from? There is actually someone who fits the profile of Arthur quite closely, and his name is Ambrosius Aurelius, likely a Romanized Briton. He lived in the 5th century, he was an heir to royalty, he was an orphan, he opposed King Vortigern, and he fought Saxons. So we have three different Arthurs, if you will. We have the Arthur of Welsh mythology, we have the Arthur of Ambrosius Aurelius, an actual historical figure in the 5th century, and then we have King Arthur, Arthur Pendragon. So how did Ambrosius Aurelius and Arthur become combined into one figure? Well, that's a difficult question to answer, but we do know that this combination happened by the time Geoffrey of Monmouth wrote his History of the Kings of Britain. So there you have it on the origins of the figure that we now know as King Arthur. He's a combination of a Welsh mythological hero named Arthur and a real historical figure named Ambrosius Aurelius. These two figures were then combined into King Arthur, Arthur Pendragon in History of the Kings of Britain. So Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain gave us the first recognizable story of King Arthur. He was crowned at a young age, he was counseled by the wizard Merlin, he had a special sword named Caliburn, which came to be known as Excalibur. He married a woman named Guinevere, he had two knights named Sir Gawain and Sir Kay. He fought the Saxons, fought the Romans, he was betrayed by his nephew Mordred, whom he killed at the Battle of Camlan. He was wounded and brought to the mystical Isle of Avalon. This story just exploded like fireworks across Europe. Writers and poets began contributing their own stories, and over the next 300 years, this huge legendarium developed. The legends accumulated such famous elements as the Sword in the Stone, the Round Table, the sorceress Morgana Le Fay, Lady Nimue, Galahad, the Grail Quest, and Lancelot's love affair with Guinevere, but they all contained Geoffrey of Monmouth's original arc. Finally, this huge legendarium was condensed by Sir Thomas Malory in the book Le Morte d'Arthur. His book is by far the most famous retelling of Arthurian legends and remains the gold standard by which all retellings are judged today. Nearly every retelling after Malory has basically just followed his narrative, condensing or cutting at the writer's preference. And since Sir Thomas of Malory wrote his book, there have been countless books, plays, movies, poems, sculptures, and other pieces of art about King Arthur. I heard one academic say that King Arthur inspired more art than any other world figure outside of religion, and that seems true to me. I mean, the stories have been around for like 1500 years now, and there's just been so much art. So to summarize, King Arthur is a combination of a Welsh mythological hero named Arthur and a real historical figure named Ambrosius Aurelius. This combination was finalized by Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain, and then over the next 300 years, the legendarium of King Arthur developed. Then it was condensed by Sir Thomas Malory in the book Le Morte d'Arthur, and that's where we get the legends of King Arthur. And because the legends of King Arthur developed over 1,000 years, there have been several paradoxes that exist within the legends. Chronologically, the stories of King Arthur occur in the 5th century, but culturally, the stories occur in the 12th century. That's why King Arthur wars against the Romans, but the culture of King Arthur is clearly high medieval 12th century in its style, dress, weapons, armor, customs, architecture, everything. The reason is that when medieval authors were writing about King Arthur in the 5th century, they couldn't conceive of a culture that was different from theirs. So when they wrote a story about the 5th century, they wrote it projecting their own culture onto the 5th century because they didn't know what a 5th century culture looked like. It's the same reason when medieval people portrayed Bible stories, they portrayed those Bible stories with 12th century medieval culture projected onto it. The authors didn't know anything else and they didn't know better. This leads into another interesting difficulty regarding the Arthurian legends' spirituality. The Arthurian legends include Welsh mythology, Celtic paganism, and Christian beliefs all together. It also includes ancient history and high medieval culture. And these things all are combined together into one interesting paradox. The legends contain very Christian overtones, such as allegiance to God, prayers, mystical powers of biblical artifacts, such as the Grail and the Lance of Longinus. Yet, the legends also contain appearances of clearly pagan powers, such as wizards, the Green Knight, the Lady of the Lake, etc. And all of these different elements just coexist in the legends of King Arthur. And the way I see it, a lot of retellings of King Arthur, particularly in movies, attempt to flatten out the stories of King Arthur and try to make them make sense spiritually and historically, and they shouldn't. Like the legends of King Arthur just should embrace all of these paradoxes and anachronisms. You have movies that just try to make it a high medieval Christian thing, and that's not what the Arthurian legends are. But then you also have retellings that try to make it like a 5th century, totally pagan type thing, and that's not what the legends are either. They're an interesting mixture, both spiritually and historically, and I think that when you retell the legends, you should just embrace those anachronisms and paradoxes. So I retold the legends of King Arthur, and in the introduction, this is how I described Arthur Pendragon. Arthur Pendragon walks a border realm, a place that exists between history and myth, Christianity and paganism, and whose adventures do not easily fit into a known time period. He might frustrate our rigid views of storytelling, but that is where he wants to be, whether we like it or not. And in that realm between worlds, truly anything can happen. That's how the Arthurian legends developed, that's how the legendarium developed, and that's the paradoxical, anachronistic nature of the legends. That's all I have for you today. Hit the button, hit the bell. Catch you later.